Hey there and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome to my channel and thank you so much for being here. Okay guys, today's video is really different from my usual stuff, but being that Halloween is just around the corner, I figured I wanted to touch base on this. Last year I made a video about my paranormal experiences, and I'm lucky enough to not have a lot, and I would like to keep it that way, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about Ouija boards, and just mentioning it makes me really nervous, which is why I'm wearing a big baggy sweater today, because I feel like I need to have the protection of a big baggy sweater on and I'm home alone. In my youth, like many people back in my day, we would have sleepovers and we would play with the Ouija board, and it was all fun and games, and it is marketed as a game, which I've never really understood. We would often gather on the weekends and dabble with the Ouija board. I've had my fair share of creepy experiences that have forever turned me off ever touching anything to do with the Ouija board. I won't even get anything that has the Ouija board's, logo on it that looks like it. I know a lot of people like to, get hats with it or shirts with it. I still feel like that's dabbling a little too close to it, and I'd much rather not. Fair warning before you watch this video, if you don't believe in this stuff, that's fine. I'm not asking you to. It's just mostly my opinion and what I've experienced and the stuff that I've been through as a result. And if you are somebody who believes in it, tread cautiously. That's all I gotta say before I get into this. Anyways, I am gonna tell you my experiences with the Ouija board, why I will never touch it again, and just my general warnings. So grab a snack, get comfortable, turn some lights on, and let's get started. Okay, so picture this. Fresh-faced 14-year-olds trying to impress their friends. I meet a new group of friends who seem really cool, and I've always had an interest in paranormal stuff. It's always been something that's fascinated me. When I met my friends in high school and they talked about this thing called a Ouija board, and one of my friends had it and picked it up from Toys R Us, I was game. I was so game. We would often get together, as I mentioned, and hang out and play with the Ouija board. And it started off very light. I don't exactly remember the first time playing it, but I remember the first few times, even though we did really innocent stuff, I would often feel just this energy in the room. I immediately picked up on that, and my initial thought was oh, this doesn't seem right, but it's fine. It should be fine. But gradually over time, my friends who had a sick fantasy of conjuring dark spirits for shits and giggles decided that it was high time we start talking to scarier spirits. Even in my youth, I had the ability to understand when things were so far beyond something that I was able to handle. I was the notorious scared one in the group. People were always trying to scare me because it was just so easy and so funny. However, I had reasons to be spooked. I do remember, and I do recall one specific time, there had to be at least 5 or 6 of us there, and one of my friends at the time, she was really hell-bent on calling this spirit who she had experiences with in the past. And I was actually watching one of Loey Lane's paranormal videos, which shout out to Loey Lane. She makes the best paranormal videos ever, but they're really spooky and I can't watch them that much. Loey Lane, if you're watching this, those videos get me every time. She had mentioned one specific spirit that is notorious for being super menacing, super evil, don't call it. And I cannot remember the name she used, and I can't remember the name of this spirit who came through. It didn't take long for this spirit to come through, and at this point I had removed myself from the board, but I remember the second they called this spirit and the spirit was present, it was really hot in the room, and then all of a sudden, any sound right now is gonna just scare the shit out of me. It just got really cold, everyone was cold, and I wasn't a person who often got cold. It was so apparent to everyone in the room that we had conjured something that we were so not equipped to handle. And here's the thing with Ouija boards too, it's super important to make sure you are ending it properly, because that can leave you open to a lot of things. And as I got older, I realized that we made that mistake. You can't really know who you're talking to. Even of a spirit seems like they're a good spirit, you really can't know. I really wish I had a better memory right now, but I'm also struggling to come back from a concussion, so my memory is not as good as it could be. I remember one time my friend and I decided to do this on our own, like the one that I like trusted with my life and still to this day trust with my life. We decided we were gonna do it together because we knew we weren't the kind of people to spook each other out. Mouse says hi, by the way. He had a thing for River Phoenix and still does, so she decided why not call on River Phoenix. We call on him, and I remember, oh god, it still creeps me out to this day. We had acknowledged that he was in the room, he had acknowledged that he was in the room, there was communication going on, and then all of a sudden I feel like this ice cold feeling. I felt it on one side, and then it slowly started to move around me and then eventually left. And that's when my friend said she felt something cold around her, and at this point there was nothing cold around me anymore, which immediately gave me the heebie-jeebies. It was so creepy, and I had never felt something so significant, being that it felt like it was literally walking around us, that made me just feel so uncomfortable. Through the grapevine or through somebody that you could actually try to communicate with these spirits through other means. We asked River Phoenix if he was willing to sort of communicate with us through pen and paper, so we left a pen and a paper on top of the Ouija board. Her and I left, we went upstairs, and we stood in her kitchen. The way her room is set up is that the way to get downstairs, there's only one door, and the only way to get there is through her kitchen, and there's no other way. So nobody else was going to go down there, nobody else could access, and it was also like 1 o'clock in the morning, so nobody else in her house was awake. We give it about 15 minutes, pull up our strength, go downstairs, and open the door. I remember my heart was racing so fast because I was terrified at what we were going to see. And you guys, literally my camera just stopped recording as I was about to tell you what I saw. We look at the paper, and then immediately we notice there's nothing written on it, a little disappointed. But then when we pick up the paper, there's an imprint, like a literal dip in the paper that looks like a thumb. Somebody stuck their thumb in there and made a perfect shape that dipped right through the paper. There was no possible way that was me. We also tried to pick up the paper and pick up other ends of it and see if we could recreate that same dip in the paper, and we couldn't without making a fold. There was no way to recreate that eerie bend, and I so wish that I had a picture of it, but these were like the days before cell phones. Yes, I am that old, so I don't have that footage or any sort of proof for you, but I remember it as clear as yesterday, and both her and I just got so spooked that we like immediately closed it off. So there's one time, which I think was like the spookiest experience that we had, and I'm reluctant to tell it because I don't know how much of it is actually true, because as I mentioned, we were all kids. A lot of us weren't the most trustful. A lot of us loved being dramatic and spooking each other out. It still to this day scares the crap out of me because it was so terrifying. We were all sitting in a circle, middle of the night in my friend's basement, which is where these things would often take place. We all decide we're gonna call in a spirit. I don't even think that we had a spirit in mind. I think we just wanted someone to come through. So this person comes through, and we had heard somewhere, and I might have been the one who gave them this idea, that spirits can sort of take over you to better communicate. So we had offered that, and one of my friends offered being the person to do that. It seemed fun at first, or interesting at first, but it quickly turned into the most horrifying experience ever, because it was so evident to all of us that the friend who offered, you know, her physical body to the spirit no longer had control. I'm telling you, this went from like pitch black, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning to literally when the light was coming out. That is how long this whole process took, because we were petrified. We didn't know how to pull her out. My friend literally started to choke herself, recreating the the death that she or this spirit had experienced, started to choke herself, started to sob uncontrollably in a way that just seemed so hard for somebody to do. And I think one of us like splashed water in her face or something, and we were able to kind of get her out of that mode long enough and close the board fast enough to repair it. But she seemed almost, how do I explain it? I feel like she almost didn't know what had happened, and also at the same time being just shell-shocked. All of us, again, we're just so petrified, which is why I will never touch it again. I don't think it's a joke. I don't think it's something that should be sold so easily to kids either, because it does seem fun, and I also know that it doesn't seem like anything that will affect you long term, but I am just not willing to risk that anymore. I actually even remember one time, me and my friends got a bunch of pictures developed, and yes, that is how old I am. You had to go with your disposable camera and get your photos developed if you wanted to see them. But we had done that, and it was from like some class party, and we decided shortly after having our images, that we were gonna go play Ouija board. And then after it was done, we decided to just zone out again and look through the photos. And we looked through these photos. There were these like weird white, like thick white lines through a lot of the photos that were not there before. I have no idea how those would have shown up in those pictures. None. It doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. But they were there, and they were real, and we were all so freaked out that we didn't even want to look at the pictures anymore. And that's essentially why I will never touch the Ouija board again. I don't know if you guys have your own experiences with the Ouija board. I don't even really like sitting here talking about it. You know, I'm gonna go watch some more Outlander after this. I would love to hear your experiences or thoughts in the comments below, because as spooked as I get, I am a glutton for punishment, and I love reading those sorts of stories. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. I think that is more than enough creeping myself out I can do right now. But don't forget, you can find new videos from me every Wednesday and every Sunday, and new blog posts every Tuesday and every Thursday, and I'll see you next time. Bye!